Welcome back, Steeler fans, to another episode here at the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith of Smoke, and joined by our awesome colleagues, Corey Karbowski and Will Massasek. Will, what's the drink of choice this week, and what are we
Once again, it's Peak IPA. Oh wait, it's all blurry. I'll put it next to my face. Hey, there it is.
There we go.
Show the product. Peak IPA, delicious, crisp, in a green and white bottle.
Nice.
Who are you two people, and why are you keep bothering me every week?
Oh, yeah.
Can I suffer in peace with this team?
No, there's no peace ever with this team. I think we've just accepted that by now. But yeah, that was a pretty poor showing, pretty poor performance. Hate to say it, Will, but you were like 1000% right on this being a game where we just get absolutely buzzsawed. I mean, good Lord, there could not have been more things that have gone wrong this past weekend than I think all year. It looked bad, all sorts. TJ and Alex couldn't get any pressure going. The only thing, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, the only person that looked somewhat good was Najee freaking Harris of all people. Like he was running hard, like there wasn't much room. But I mean, you could tell the effort was there from him at least. He made some nice splash plays that we haven't really seen this year. But yeah, just very, very unfortunate this past week. I mean, just what are your guys' thoughts on it?
By the way, speaking of Najee, he was their best player, but it actually, for me, it highlights. I mean, I hate to say this because I don't want to take away from him the fact that he performed well at times on some plays, but it really highlights why spending a first round pick on a running back when you have all these other issues with the team. It's like how much difference did it make in that game that he had 70 yards rushing? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe it moved the needle 1.5 or something. Whereas even if like Pat Fryermuth had a pretty good game, it might have led to some points. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about if that's what Najee has to offer on a good day, it doesn't really move the needle for me, and it sort of feels like putting hubcaps on a clunker, which is like what somebody said when he was drafted, and that's pretty much it.
Corey, what are your kind of thoughts about what happened this past weekend?
I mean, other than the fact that we were just thoroughly outcoached in basically every aspect. I mean, that was something I kind of touched upon why I predicted us to lose. And, even I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought it would just be, defense kind of plays well, talent steps up. But no, it was a beat down in pretty much every aspect. I mean, we got diced by a rookie QB. He was just over 50%, but he was hitting huge chunks. The part that really got me on this game was how poorly Broderick Jones played. Like, I wasn't in love with him scouting. It wasn't a particularly strong tackle class. But, I mean, one of the things I wrote is I thought he'd be a better guard than center just because of his pass sets, and he kind of wasn't great, like, out in space. Like, his pass sets didn't really get any depth, so a lot of his wins were on quick sets. And any time he had to cover really any ground at all, I mean, he's getting Kenny nailed in the quick game, which, I mean, when you can't keep your QB clean on, slant flats and hook curls, like you're going to be in trouble. I mean, that people were clamoring for him to start, but even Dan Moore wasn't giving up losses that quick for the most part. I mean, especially not as many as Broderick did. I think that's just really concerning, other than all the coaching stuff, which we can't do anything about. But if your first round pick is that out of water, he seems like a long way away. It's not like he was facing some dynamo on the edge. He wasn't facing Will Anderson. He was facing Jonathan Greenard. And he was taking his lunch money. So that was really the biggest thing that I was looking at, was like, this guy was supposed to be an anchor for us, or franchise left tackle, and he just got abused. And then Kenny played poorly, but I'm sure we'll touch on that a little later.
I mean, we'll say about Jones, he's very young, both age wise and also experience wise. So like it scares me a little less. Like you, I had him as sort of like a, the third tackle in the class, um, because of his potential, but he was not nearly as ready to play as the top couple of guys for sure.
No,
Sorry, Jerry, you were going to say something.
well, I mean, we made Jonathan Grenard look like he's going to be a candidate for the All Pro team. I mean, good Lord, talk about a guy, who honestly, whose name I haven't heard in probably 4 years, just as a guy out there. I mean, the kid out of Florida, right? If I remember correctly,
Yeah, I
just,
think so.
Yeah.
yeah, just kind of tweener, edge rusher type of guy. And it's like, good Lord, he lit us up. I mean, he had his like career defining game against us this week. I mean, like, good Lord, it's like you'd think I'd be used to that being an IU football fan, and like every week someone sets a new record. No, seriously, that's like the running joke between me and my friends. It's like, okay, what record can the opponent set this week? So so it's like I'm really sick of having that on both ends of my football spectrum, but that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, just oh my gosh, just couldn't get over just some of the stuff I saw this weekend. I mean, how bad? I just don't understand how our offensive line can be this bad. I really don't. We're just bullied.
Well, if you remember the first, before the first game, we were discussing about the preseason and about the things that were potential pitfalls. And it's like, we got so enamored with the fact that the offensive line is better than last year, which theoretically it might be, but it was more like a couple new faces, and it felt like they signed a guy, maybe drafted a guy, maybe it was going to get him better, but I felt like it was really unclear that even the best, at the best, it would be like maybe a couple of guys who were average, and then a couple of guys that were worse than average, and then a young guy that's learning his way. So that's not exactly a recipe for stability and building your team around offensive line, at least not for this year. But I feel like it's the same thing with the offensive coordinator, whose name shall not be named. Um, that people want to go back to Todd Haley, but that's only because it seems better than what we've had the last couple of offensive coordinators. Not that he was actually better, but like going back to the offensive line of last year seems better right now. But that's only because it's a recency bias. I don't know. I just want to say quickly. I feel like it's the issues with this game. It's not even worth talking about the individual failures and whatever. It's like it's organizational. Is an emblematic game for the organization because the coaching, the decisions made by the head coach, for instance, to punt on 4th and 2, down 3 scores or something.
Yeah.
To be completely willing to essentially put the wraps on your offense in conservativeness to the point where they can't even get out of their own way right now. They're afraid to take chances. They're afraid to push the ball downfield. They don't have solutions for protecting their offensive line a little bit, because I guess it involves not protecting their quarterback, or it doesn't involve their runners enough that they are interested in whatever, right? And most concerning, really, honestly, the defense. Defense is supposed to be that head coach's specialty. He has his choice of assistants and schemes and players, and they have a lot of money invested on that side. And granted, Cam Hayward is not playing, but they're consistently giving up 400 yards a game. Unless they can get a couple of scores a game, it's very tough for them to stop the other team enough. And this thing, we should talk about it before the night's over when we get to the previewing the game. But they're making at least one receiver every week a lock in the daily fantasy bets. I mean, I think if you want to lock winner this week, it's who would it be? Zay Flowers, the over on whatever they say on DraftKings. So anyway, it's just organizational. It's like, and then the players that they added, the players that they drafted, it's unclear how much, if they didn't prioritize right, or the guys that they brought in don't fit their scheme, or the coaches can't coach them. Whatever it is, it's bigger problems than just, Pat Freiermuth got hurt. We got beat in Houston. It's not even worth talking about what happened in the game specifically. It's more like generally, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And Corey, I don't know if you have anything to say on this, but since Will brought up the injury report, or kind of guys who are injured right now. I don't know if you guys know this, but not a single starting offensive lineman practiced today.
Oh, no, I did not notice
Yeah,
that.
so I'll go through the injury report real
By the
here.
way, it should be okay since your quarterback has a bad knee.
Yeah. Well, so Harvin's still out, with a right hamstring. Kenny Pickett, knee limited. Patrick Peterson, non-injury related. I don't get that. I understand he's an old guy, but it's like he has sucked this year. I don't know why he gets a day off. Cole
Can't
Holt,
hurt.
yeah, Cole Holcomb's limited with a back, but so here's where the offensive line portion starts.
By the way, I bet Cole Holcomb hurt his back at that play where Kendrick Green knocked an ass over tea kettle.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Real, right? But so Dan Moore didn't practice with the knee injury he got this week. Isaac Samalo, non-injury related, did not practice. I don't understand that either. He's supposed to be this guard in free agency that's supposed to come in and help make us better. He has sucked like all year long. Like
I don't think he was that bad last game, and I think a lot of it has to do with a bottom 4 center and a bottom 4 left tackle.
Yeah, exactly. Who's on his left and on his right makes a huge difference, man. It's not Philly anymore.
Right. Okay. And I was wrong about my previous sentiment. Apparently Cole practiced today. I thought I saw
He's barely a starter, so you were right.
Yeah. I missed that, but Okorafor didn't practice with an elbow. James Daniels still didn't practice with a groin. There's 4 of your 5 starters, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I don't get it, but I understand if you were hurt.
Didn't play a bad game. Nate Herbig.
Yeah, Nate Herbig. Pretty bad game.
I mean,
it's
an injury report, and then Firemouth is out. They think maybe for a long time. I heard.
Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks not practice. DeMarvin Leal concussion did not practice. I must have kind of tuned out the game at the point where he had left.
It's hard to tell that anybody was playing on defense, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then of all things, Kenny Pickett logged a limited practice today. I don't really know what that means.
He is expected to start. They said that today was the measuring stick. He did about half the reps with Trubisky, and it's expected that Pickett will start on Sunday. Bruised knee is now what he said. Kenny Pickett said his knee is just bruised, and he did not suffer structural damage. That's what he said. I don't know if I believe that, but that's in the NFL. I think they have to be somewhat truthful. Maybe they could just say it's a knee injury and leave it at that. I don't know.
Yeah. But so that's kind of your injury report as of the Wednesday practice. But let's kind of flesh this game. Obviously, there's nothing good to talk about other than play Joey Porter. All right, let's move on. So we've got a fun matchup here, in Pittsburgh this week. Our hated rivals, the Baltimore Ravens, flying to town. I mean, yeah, it's funny. I was listening to the radio today going into work, and I think it was Chris Canty made one of the dumbest comments I've ever heard an announcer made. He basically said the quarterbacks don't matter in this game this weekend. He was like, as long as it's physical and stuff. Apparently, if the Steelers hold their opponents under 22 points, they win like 84% of the time. So that's the benchmark this week. And particularly in the Ravens game, as long as we score 19, we've never lost, apparently, or it's been a very long time since that's happened. But anyway, Ravens are coming to town. What are some matchups you think we need to look out for this week, gentlemen?
Oh, hang on, Corey. How many points do you think the Steelers defense can give up and still win this game?
I'm going to say 16.
Oh, that's I'm going to say 8.
Well,
I'm just saying it's like I think it's like one of the 20. If they give up 22, I don't see the Steelers offense winning this game. I'd be shocked.
Yeah. Hey, well, we can maybe count on one defensive touchdown, one short field goal, and then somehow we get an offensive touchdown on the board. That's kind of how I'm keeping 16 in my head. I'm not sure how else we get to that.
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your answer to the question. Go ahead.
Oh, well, whoever's on Levi Wallace, I mean, that dude's been getting beat like a drum. I don't think it matters if it's Rashad Bateman. I don't think it matters if it's Odell Beckham Jr. I don't think it matters if it's Zay Flowers. I think all of them will win. If it's Zay Flowers, I mean, we could really be in trouble. I mean, that dude's been electric, but I just don't know what we're doing, just trotting Levi Wallace out. I touched on it like 2 weeks ago. It kind of baffles me where our rookie, and they said this week that Joey Porter is supposed to have earned more reps, yada yada yada. I don't understand how the rookies have to fight tooth and nail to earn their reps when the people over them, especially veterans, like there's a different expectation for veterans and rookies. And if the veterans are stinking it up week after week, and not only just poor performance, but we've seen low effort plays from Levi Wallace. Like, it's all bad.
Oh, and yeah. The low effort stuff is just killer. Not sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, Corey, but it's unreal.
Yeah. And so, I understand making your rookies earn it, but if your veterans are actively doing things to, to show they don't deserve their spot, take them out. You're doing even worse by not promoting a rookie than by not punishing a guy who's taking plays off and just playing bad in general. So whoever's on him, he's a sieve out there. It's any in-breaking route gets completed against him. It doesn't matter where. Sometimes you don't even know it's Levi Wallace on him because the camera's he's not even in the frame on the left side because he's always playing on that right side. But yeah, that's my answer. Any of the receivers on Levi Wallace.
I don't think Patrick Peterson's been any better, really, but I hear you.
He's been a little better, but it's like the 130th best corner versus the 121st best corner. Like it's the benchmarks we're talking about.
Wow, we're grasping at straws. I to that end, just to piggyback on that for a second, in the Steelers' first 4 games this year, Brandon Ayuk, which Cooper is it in Cleveland? I'm sorry. Amari Cooper, Devontae Adams, and Nico Collins have the average of those 4 receivers in the first 4 games is 9 for 142 and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So, like that is
good.
Go to DraftKings, Zay Flowers. Tell them I sent you. I don't have a house to bet. I couldn't really afford to bet my house anyway, but I will be doing that. I think the interior of the Ravens defensive line against the interior of whatever Steelers offensive line, and man, they are putting the offensive back in offensive line, aren't they? I think that the Ravens, in their last couple of games have really created some havoc. They generate almost as much pressure in their interior defensive pass rush as they do from their edge guys. Although there is this sort of the Bowser coming as a sort of wild card. He's not somebody who's coming every down. He's not like playing a 3-4 edge. He's playing more of like a strong side linebacker in a 4-3. But he also can provide some pressure. So they bring it from different places. That puts a real emphasis on the offensive line holding up in the middle, and especially stunts and having to figure out assignments in the middle. That seems to be a real weak thing for the Steelers. This last week, it was a real problem, man. They had anytime somebody crossed the face of a tackle or one of the interior players, it was just like whoever picked them up could not prevent that player from getting a hit on a quarterback. So that's something that's a big concern for me in terms of matchups.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of build off that one. Kyle Hamilton is starting to play really well for the Ravens. So our tight ends and running backs have to be able to pick him up when he blitzes because he's starting to get really good into depth at, getting pressure at the just right time. I mean, shoot, I think it was that game 2 weeks ago. I can't remember who Baltimore was playing, but I mean, he was killing the quarterback. It might have been the Colts game 2 weeks ago. I can't remember.
Cincinnati also in there somewhere, but yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he has just been a force coming down and making plays as a pass rusher. So, I mean, just on top of what he can do as a coverage guy, our tight ends and running backs have to be able to pick that up because the Ravens haven't been able to produce a ton of pressure from the outside, with Odafe injured, Ojabo back on the IR here. So they've had to bring it from other places, and then they've done a much better job this year of finding ways to generate that pressure. So kind of to piggyback off what you said, Will, guys have to be ready to pick that up, especially if we're going to be down multiple offensive linemen this week. I mean, at this point, we don't even know who's going to play. Could be a long Sunday for that group. There any other matchups we should be out looking for this weekend, gents? Oh, that's fair. So we have
Actually,
go ahead, Will.
No, never mind. It's okay. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So, ladies and gents, we have an interesting question. We have a few questions that were posed to the group this week. I want to shout out to Orange Steel for giving us some ammo. Always appreciate you listening in and then challenging us to come up with some answers. And I'm going to let myself and the colleagues get at it here. So, first question from Orange was, what are two things, one on the offensive side of the ball and one on the defensive, that the Steelers could roll out immediately that would change things for the better? Now, obviously, there's some parameters here. We can't do trades. We're not firing anyone, unfortunately, Matt Canada. Well, we had to bring it up at some point, right? No starting rookies over vets. Realistic things, gentlemen. Will, I'll throw it to you first.
On the offensive side, it's really simple because I've been preaching this for so long. They need to throw the ball on first and second down more than they run it on first and second down while the game is in, whether the game is close, when it's within a couple of scores. When I say throw it, I mean not a wide receiver screen or a ball that is behind the line of scrimmage. I mean something that goes downfield when it's easier for the quarterback to get time to throw and to get coverage that's favorable, because teams can't just sit on the sticks on third down and whatever. So it's like if you force the quarterback to make plays on third down, I don't know if this is the quarterback or the offensive line or the receiving crew for that, but if you give them some opportunities early, look at what the Jets did last week with Zach Wilson compared to what they had done with him up to this point. Before this week, they were kind of very protective of him, and it was like run, and then try to make a play on third and long, which that didn't work very well for them, or pass it short, throw a lot of screens, whatever. But this week they let it open up a little bit on first and second down, and he outplayed a star quarterback on the other side. So I feel like that could apply to the offense as well. On defense, I think that they need to probably get used to the idea of not being in, quote, their base defense, even against packages with the Ravens where they're going to have a lot of tight ends on the field, because I think that they don't appear to be, they need more people off the front, fewer defensive tackles and more either linebackers or safeties or defensive backs, even to stop the run. So I propose that they spend less time with a pure nose tackle on the field and play Keanu Benton more and be more, slightly lighter package and try to get run on less to the edges, which is where they've been getting killed.
Okay, Corey?
Yeah, I'm going to just tackle the defensive side of the ball on this one. So I watched a breakdown where you can see like the whole field, and it was a breakdown of CJ Stroud's game. And I'm not even almost talking about this week because we always do all sorts of different stuff versus the Ravens than we do against everyone else. It's one of those games we just know them so well. But we sit in a lot of too high coverages where we have two safeties out back deep. And so one thing with those is that you're susceptible to the middle of the field. So that's one thing that's usually middle field open, which is two safeties deep. You get hit over the middle. And the other thing is that it's easier to run the ball. It's just kind of common sense. If you have a safety back deep instead of in the box, it's easier to run the ball. So, this isn't a crazy change, but it's just kind of changed the mentality of the Steelers defense, kind of more of that bend but don't break, where I would say we switch more to one high, kind of let Minkah roam from a deep safety spot again, where he's not just taking up half the field. So you kind of get more creative with Minkah back deep. It plays to the personnel a little better, I think, with Kazee and Keanu Neal instead of having them play back deep. But we've just been, I watched the whole YouTube video of CJ Stroud was just him just either finding the middle or hitting hole shots. I mean, we were just getting killed too deep. And, it just kind of speaks to our issues. We still can't really stop the run. We haven't been able to for a while. So I would say get more to those one high looks, bring some more people to the party. Should help you against tight ends. It should help you on the outside run game. Should just kind of help out in the areas where you're kind of weak at right now. And you kind of just deal with the issues that come with having one deep safety as it comes. But, you have probably the best one high safety in the league. Like, I mean, I'd be hard pressed to find a safety with more range and better ball instincts than Minka. So out of any team in the league, you're more equipped to run one high safety than anyone else.
Yeah, I think what was it? I saw a statistic earlier this week that when Minka leads the defense in tackles, like it's the worst, some of the worst defenses that the Steelers have ever fielded. Like when he is leading the team in tackles in like those 2 years, I can't remember the years, but it was like 128 tackles one year and 124 the other. It was the worst run defense ever. And we even went through that little saga where it's like Minka doesn't want to play the strong safety type of role. It's like he wants to be back there where he can, be the quarterback back there, to be deep and, and impact the game that we know him best, even though we've seen some amazing hits for Minka, sorry, Nick Chubb, but that's not what he wants to be doing. He wants to be that last line of defense type of guy. So Corey, you make a good point there.
And I think, Corey, you're this week is actually a good time to implement that because the too high, look that they've been favoring really makes it a little bit easier for the quarterback to run, which is not a good thing when you play Baltimore. And it also makes you really susceptible to screens because those linebacker on the interior, somebody's always bailing immediately from the snap to get away from the line of scrimmage on a pass set. So a screen, unless they recognize it early, got fewer and fewer people in the middle of the field to stop that. So,
well, I believe they will implement it because all we ran last year, I mean, we ran basically a 4-3 with one high safety. I mean, we were putting some heavy looks down in the box last year. But that's my point is we do it every year. Like we show up on defense against Baltimore. We just always end up doing it. We know how to scheme for them. We know how to scheme for their quarterbacks. And
those guys you're talking about bringing into the box, now are no longer like Terrell Edmonds was at least, dependable and sometimes good. Back in the day, Mike Hilton, you had somebody in the slot. You had guys in the slot that were aggressive, that could tackle, that could make plays. So I feel like the problem, with counting on the defense to look good this week is because they always do against Baltimore is that they're definitely missing some pieces in the middle against a team that will just try to kill you with, we're either going to run it, throw it to the tight end, or our quarterback's going to take off when there's space. And, that to me is all about the strong safety and nickel play. And I think that's one of the weaker parts of the Steelers team. Sorry I'm ranting.
No, you're good. So that's some good stuff, guys. We'll kind of move on to the next question here, which tweak the rules a little bit now. So who are your offensive coordinators' names / hopefuls in the event Canada gets fired? I'm going to take this one, just start off. Just a guy who I've always had on the back of my mind, really, ever since last year. I'm going to go raid, the best team in the NFL. I'm going to go out to the 49ers out in the, the Golden Gate Bridge area. Chris Forster, the offensive line coach and run game coordinator for the 49ers. He is a little on the older side. He is 61, but this is a guy that Coach Shanahan supposedly has really leaned on these last 2 years as a guy to really improve this team. And you've seen it, the 49ers don't exactly have all pros across the board or anything. He gets a lot out of guys that are just in there, Aaron Banks, I think he was a 7th round draft pick. I think Jake Brendel, the center, another late round draft pick. I mean, they felt comfortable enough to let Mike McGlinchey glow this offseason to go to get a contract because Kivitz, I think is the name, at right tackle, playing pretty good and solid for them. So, I mean, there's a guy who develops offensive linemen, which we haven't done in 4 or 5 years since we let all of our top offensive linemen either retire or leave. So that's a big sticking point to me. But then if he can help fix this run game, that's the best medicine to give Kenny his best chance if we are going to stick with Kenny, to let him have those more simple progressions, easier throws to open up the game for him. So yeah, I'm rating another Shanahan boy. Shocker. Corey, let's go back to you. Is there anyone in particular that comes to mind when you think of a hopeful?
This is a tough question because for starters, no OC. Maybe the Steelers of old, this would have been possible, but this version of the Steelers, there are not OCs that are going to be willing to make a lateral move to go from wherever they are to the Steelers. Like there's pieces, but I don't think under Tomlin, I don't think anyone's going to want to jump from wherever they are to go coach under Tomlin, a defensive-minded coach who wants you to chew clock. I mean, Will's been preaching to the choir about this since I hopped on the show. I mean, I'm doing the same exact thing you are, Jeremy. I read this question. I looked up 49ers coaching staff. I was looking for their receivers or their running backs coach, and I found Leonard Hankerson. He's his first season as the receivers coach. He's been there since 21 as an offensive quality control coach. He's young. At this point, you're taking a gamble going to the college ranks. I don't think anyone from the college ranks is going to translate at least a little bit to what Tomlin wants out of his guys, out of his OCs. So I'm just going to stick with the Shanahan guy, a young guy who might need hopefully 3 or 4 years if they're good before they get hired away. And we got to go look for someone else. But I mean, this is a copycat league. The 49ers are consistently one of the better offenses. Shanahan consistently produces offensive coordinators. I mean, the Texans just had one of them where, you got to poach position coaches now and hope that they end up as good play callers. But I'm just going to stick with you. Take someone out of the 49ers coaching room. All of them seem to work out.
Will, anyone in particular you thinking
of? First of all, I mean, I do agree that really what the person is asking, the subtext of the question is, who will the next head coach of the Steelers be? Because, I just don't think that any of those coordinators are going to make a difference as long as, unless Mike Tomlin is his brain is replaced by, AI or something, or an alien life form, and he stops being the person that he's been his whole, NFL career. So since I don't think that's going to happen, I mean, I can give you a couple of future offensive coordinator names I think are worth knowing about. Chris Beatty, who's with the Chargers right now. I know Brandon Staley is very high on him. He's a guy that is the wide receivers coach now. He's not a coordinator yet, so he's somebody that might take a coordinator job. And he was his big thing was expanding the route tree of the receivers that they had to work with. So rather than say, we need to, change everything up or get all new personnel or whatever, he took what they had and figured out a way to work with it, which I think is always like a really positive thing to have. And there's also the Nick Caley, who's a tight ends coach with the Rams, I think is another one. But mostly I think this boils down to the two Smiths and the two Johnsons. These people are the best young offensive. You're always looking, like, to me right now, I'm thinking to myself, who are the young offensive outlier minds who, maybe you could get one as your offensive coordinator, but more likely you'd have to hire them as a head coach. And I'll give them to you from least likely to most likely. AJ Smith, who's the offensive coordinator under which Phillips is it? That's coaching? Wade Phillips in the XFL. But he's a guy that is considered to have his next job will be offensive coordinator probably in the NFL. Really good at working with quarterbacks. And the great thing about the XFL is you get a transparency into the play calling and what he's saying into the microphone to his players. So that's, getting an insight about what kind of relationship he has with them and how he's calling plays. I feel like he's got a real future in the league. But Brian Johnson and Ben Johnson, I think, are the two best head coaching candidates that there are right now. Brian Johnson's the offensive coordinator, first year in Philadelphia. He is 36 years old. He is definitely somebody that's, been in this chain with the Eagles, getting, essentially an education in how to be innovative and, how to get the most out of your talent. So for that reason, I think he's destined to be a head football coach sooner rather than later. Like Tomlin was, he was, 1 year coordinator before he got hired, and he was about the same age. He's somebody that would be a real possibility as a head coach candidate for the Steelers. And the other one is Ben Johnson with Detroit, who I would say right now is my favorite option. Somebody says, well, if you get rid of Mike Tomlin, who are you going to get? Well, Ben Johnson is the obvious choice. He's the offensive coordinator with Detroit. Previously was the passing game coordinator. Previous to that, he was a run game coordinator. So he's somebody that has broken down parts of the game. I think the Detroit Lions have as pretty a run game in terms of design and execution as anybody in the NFL, which if you're going to come for the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to at least be able to, if you're going to run the football, you better do it well. And 36 years old, you would be hiring another young coach for the Steelers that might work. So that's my answer. To me, I don't care about hiring an offensive coordinator that is going to be subservient to Mike Tomlin, unless they're going to bring in somebody who's like a Hall of Fame coach in his own right, like Dick LeBeau was.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm about to say you saying something kind of in my head. I don't know what it was, but I was like, I'm going to look at the Dolphins coaching staff because if me and Jeremy, we kind of have the right idea, go coach good offensive guys, but Miami's starting to trend towards the new innovator.
Frank Smith, there's a guy for you. I think he's
Frank Smith I saw, but also there's Darrell Bevell, and this guy's been around the block. You might remember him. He was the Jacksonville OC in 21, that kind of disaster team. And he served as the team's interim head coach, led the team to a Week 18 victory over Indy, which eliminated the Colts from the playoff berth. He's been an interim coach twice, so kind of one of those guys where he's been an OC, and then he gets the interim job, and then the team replaces them. Right now, he is the quarterback and passing game coordinator for the Dolphins.
Yeah, that's I don't know if that's a real good indicator if he's a good coach or not.
But he is.
they're only blowing away the rest of the league right now. So yeah.
Right.
So look at what Skylar Thompson, right? Look at what Skylar Thompson did last year when Tua was out. Just looking at this guy's resume, he's had good offenses everywhere he's at. He was the quarterback coach when Russell Wilson looked like old Russell Wilson. He was the OC for Minnesota back in 06 to 10. And through there, he had won the NFC North twice and advanced to the NFC Championship game. Think of all the cool stuff you used to see with Percy Harvin. Like anytime you go back and look at old highlight reels, that's this guy. So, looking at not only his resume, but what he's doing like right now. But this looks like a guy where, I sure as hell like to see him more than Canada. Like this guy looks proven. I'm kind of stunned he's not an OC right now, actually.
Yeah, you're right. It seems like his name's come up several times and he's interviewed for stuff, but he's just never been that guy to get like past that first round interview. So maybe he doesn't interview well. They always said that was kind of the thing about
the enemy
not getting, that next head coaching job either. The guy doesn't interview well, supposedly. But proving guy there. So you guys will. Shoot, you went to the XFL. I wasn't anticipating that. Talk about a bevy of names to answer this question.
I tried, man. Because it's not like I haven't thought about it at all the last couple of years.
Yeah, right.
I do want to get those again, Will, because I'm going to do the same article I did last year, just this year. So at least OCs, because I don't think Tomlin's going to get fired. I want to get those OC names, and I'll kind of, field around and put out another one of those articles.
Yeah, Todd Monken is not coming to the Steelers to be their offensive coordinator.
Banging on the door for him. Yeah, he's actually is coming to the Steelers this weekend.
That's true.
I was sorry to say, not totally inaccurate, but
one more question though.
Yeah, one more question from Orange. What is the single biggest piece of Kenny Pickett's game that has regressed, and is there any legitimate hope that it can be fixed? Will or
tackle that.
Corey, go for it.
I'm gonna guess that Will's gonna talk about accuracy.
No.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's accuracy, anyways. I mean, I thought he had poor pocket presence last year. It's been horrific this year. I mean, I saw a stat, which PFF I really take for a grain of salt, but I'm pretty sure they're accurate on this stat. There's been 11 sacks this year, and I think Kenny's responsible for 8 of them. Was that the number?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I mean, that's bad because that's usually what when we did the preseason stuff and when we talked about preseason, that's what I was like, this is something where it looks like he's gotten better. Granted, we were playing against backup D line, so the pressure wasn't as bad, but he's bailing more than he did last year. He looks way more uncomfortable. I mean, there's just a thing where like any successful QB, even Mahomes, who runs himself into sacks, he still has poise. Like he just ends up trying to extend too long. There's zero poise in Kenny's game. There's zero confidence in the pocket. And I mean, I read some comment on something, Twitter, YouTube, somewhere. It's like Kenny wants to extend the play so bad, but he just doesn't have the tools that any of those other play extenders do. He can't scramble like Lamar. He doesn't have Allen's arm. He's not as elusive as Mahomes, plus arm, plus all the other stuff. He doesn't have the tools they have, but he wants to get out of structure so bad. And, I'm going to be honest. I don't want to put all the chips in this game, but I think the injury actually gives us a good lens to look at this through and to see if there's any hope that it can be fixed, because Kenny's not going to be able to move this game. I mean, he's going to be in a thick, sturdy knee brace, and he's going to be forced to hang in the pocket. So, I mean, I'm going to call my shot here. I mean, we can look at this in a year or two down the line and see if it's true. But if Kenny looks sloppy, looks scared, looks, still jittery, still isn't accurate, if he can't make plays when he can't move, or like if he can't handle any pocket movement when he's forced to, I think, it might be time to start looking at the next guy, because this is a game where he's going to be forced to hang in there, and the Ravens know he's going to be forced to hang in there. And if he can't show that he can make throws or, look through trash, because we know he can take a hit and hit an open guy. I mean, he's done that before. He's tough. And we know he can scramble when there's a bust on the D line, when someone dives in, and we know he can hit a guy, even if it's a tight window. But I don't know if there's been a single throw where he's manipulated the pocket by staying in and then finding a guy downfield and making a tight window throw. So I think he's going to be forced to do that this week. And if we put up another 0, and granted, Canada's offense stinks, all that, but that has nothing to do with Kenny in the pocket. All quarterbacks deal with pressure. I mean, he's, like we said, 8 out of the 11 sacks have been on Kenny. So I think this week is a huge test if he can handle staying in the pocket. And if not, better start scouting some of those 2024 guys, in my opinion.
All right, Will.
I think Kenny arrived in the NFL with a ton of confidence, especially confidence in his arm, whether that was warranted or not, because of his ability to get out of structure at Pitt and have guys that were open to throw to, like Jordan Addison. He built up some confidence that he could make throws. What I noticed, especially as this year goes on, it seems to be even worse and worse, is he seems to have lost confidence utterly in his arm. I noticed that when he's drifting in the pocket, he's drifting towards the throw that he has to make, because he's uncomfortable standing and delivering a ball downfield to a tight window where he has to be accurate without his momentum moving to him towards the throw. That there was a cut up of a lot of hits that he took during the game, and people were like, "Well, it's the offensive line, letting him get hit every play. That's why he's uncomfortable in the pocket, et cetera, et cetera." But what I saw in there was he would move within the pocket towards pressure, and often that was a result of him moving towards a receiver that he was staring down. So he got in his mind, he wants to make a throw to somebody, and I should be able to get this throw. He should come open, and then he drifts his way in the pocket towards that guy. To me, that's confidence in your arm, because if you have to feel like you've got to be going towards the guy to throw it, and then have to wait for the exact right time for the guy to be open enough for you to throw it to him, that's a formula for unsuccess in the NFL, and it that's what it looks like to me. And then also sometimes where he's got a quick opportunity to make a throw, but he clutches, double clutches and doesn't make the throw. That to me is also a function of confidence of some kind. Am I missing the read? Can I make this window with my arm? Could be a combination of confidence in his ability to make the throw. Could be confidence in his ability to read the defenses. But for whatever reason, and I mean, this is to be expected. This is year two. A lot of quarterbacks in the league have come in, and for like a game or two, they look like ball of fire. And then as teams adjust to them and they figure out what you don't do very well, they start giving you different problems to solve, and also, reminds me. A friend of mine said years ago, marriage, points are never given; they're only taken away. And that's the same thing with confidence with a quarterback. You don't ever gain any confidence as a quarterback. Basically, your whole career is spent, withstanding points being taken out of your confidence pool. So I think that's the thing. It's like it's unlikely that a quarterback gets into a real confidence deficit in year two and then somehow comes out of that and becomes a really elite player. But you got to go through the curve, whether it comes out good on the other side or not. So I guess we're going to find out. But yeah, this is something to look out for. Does he look confident in his ability to make throws at an NFL level? That's the part, when he's not throwing a screen pass and not lobbing it deep downfield on the sideline, that's when the confidence really shows.
And I just want to mention real quick before Jeremy, Will touched on it with the drifting, and that's, our O-line's it's really not good right now. But when you have a QB who you don't know where he's going to be drifting on a play-to-play basis, like you got to think. So think about how we talk about TJ. When we talk about TJ's bend, that's because the QB is up in the pocket. So when a tackle makes TJ run the hump, TJ has bend unlike other guys, so he can make the play. There's been numerous times where, and these aren't even plays where he's getting sacked, but where Kenny drifts back, and it's supposed to be a 3-step drop. So the tackle knows they're supposed to be protecting 3 yards behind the quarterback. But Kenny drifts, and all of a sudden, guys like Jonathan Greenard, I'm not saying it happened this game, but guys like Jonathan Greenard, instead of needing the natural ability to bend around the tackle and, make plays that normally can't, they can just coast upfield, and Kenny's either just going to stand there, then they got to bend only little, or he ends up drifting right into their face, and there's nothing a tackle can do about it. Like what happened on Kenny's injury, he just scoots left. Now all of a sudden the end's right in front of your face. What happened? Well, you just walked right into a line. He makes it so easy for teams to rush him sometimes. You don't even, no one's blitzing us really. It's 4-man pressure. But I'll let Jeremy go. I just wanted to touch on the drifting part of that.
Poor Jeremy's not going to get a chance to say anything tonight. We're killing him. That's okay.
You guys, this is my diplomatic answer. You guys have hit on a lot of key points about this, but I mean, this kind of feeds into it after all that. But just reading the field, it doesn't seem like he can do it. He is a one-read quarterback. When that one read is open, he gets the ball out pretty quickly, generally pretty accurately, because he doesn't have time to screw up his mechanics or do any of the other things that get in the way of an efficient pass, from the pocket or even on the move, even on the rare circumstance, that we roll a pocket to help his ass out. That there's just so many things that go wrong once that first read isn't there for him. And you guys have touched on a lot of it, so I won't dive deep into it, but I genuinely worry about this game being too fast for him almost. And I don't know if that is fixable. Some guys never adjust to that speed. That's the biggest difference, that they always, at every position, that's the difference between the college game and the NFL game. You're always going up against guys that were killing it on Saturday.
And Jeremy, no small thing. The middle of the field is condensed compared
yes,
to college because the hashes are in,
right,
and guys are bigger and faster, and so it really changes. When you're scouting college quarterbacks, and receivers for that matter. It's just like they have so much space to work with in college, and you just know when they get to the NFL level that there just isn't space like that. It's rare. I mean, some of these coaches are amazing at finding ways to get their players space that we don't really see in Pittsburgh, but it's something to consider for Kenny. It's like, can he adjust to that? Maybe. I mean, arguably it took him 4 years to adjust to the speed of college.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that means for his professional career if he'll last that long.
Right. And then just to kind of one more thing, it's one thing to see the field. It's another to read a defense. And Will, you touched on it basically. You dove in pretty deep there, so I won't go there. But it's like the speed of the game impacts his ability to read the field because those guys are disguising things and covering ground so much faster than what he was used to in college. I still think that's throwing him off. He's thinking, oh, I can beat this guy to this throw. And it's like, no, dude, you can't do that no more. Like, you can't make that throw to the far side of the field anymore because they are always going to beat you to it. There's no one in the NFL that can't beat from his corner spot, beat the wide receiver to a spot on a throw out on the far boundary. It's just almost every corner in the league can recover from that. So just in general, just field vision, reading the defense. I don't know if that gets better. Now the offensive line has sucked. He doesn't have time per se, but that's a legitimate thing to worry about. You see all of these college quarterbacks, that have come out. There's like, oh, he might be really good. He might be really good. Nope, never could get past that part of it. That's kind of where I'm at with Kenny right now. So, Corey, do you have something else you want to add on?
Yeah, it's like a small thing, and it's not really a small thing for QBs, but last year, and Grant, something to add, he had a consistent man beater with Deontay Johnson, so it makes it a lot easier to do things like this. But like, he's not throwing with any anticipation right now, and there's QBs who can get away with that. Like Herbert can get away with that. Herbert's the guy who will kind of look at a throw and then rip it a lot of time, but he's got such a cannon that it works. Like, if there's space, he hits it. For a guy like Kenny, and you see it with a guy like Burrow right now that Burrow can't really extend, is that these guys without elite arms, or even, you can say what you want about Burrow's arm. I don't think it's elite. I think it's a fine arm, but he also has very good receivers. But especially with Kenny, when you don't have an elite arm to, like, just beat a defense, like beat a guy on a crosser, like beat him with your arm, you have to throw with anticipation. Like, you have to find ways to where the corner can't see the ball coming. And so it's easier with Deontay, but he's not doing it at all. Like, there are no throws where he is letting it rip unless it's, the most scripted quick out ever. Like, anyone can hit a quick out. You can find a high schooler kid that hit a quick out half the time on a 3rd and 10, which is when we're hitting them. Like, and I mean, these are things where he did it last year, but like Will said, the confidence doesn't really come back, like with a lot of these QBs, like, and he's just, we can hammer on so many things with Kenny, but this season, I'm just not sure if there's a single thing he's done positively compared to other QBs in the NFL. Like,
which is crazy, because all we were told in the offseason was how hard he worked and how much practice he put in with the receivers and the playbook and the coaches and film. It's like, man, if you this is an example of what you look like after you did all that work. Like, it's like maybe the problems are things that you can't work on. This is kind of my thing. It's like, I love that he works hard, and that I this is something I think I've said before on the show. Like, it will be a real eye-opening season for him, because it's not like you can say, well, if he just worked a little bit harder and studied more, he'd be great.
No. Well, and thank you again, Orange, for posing those questions. Always appreciate some good in-depth stuff for us to really hammer into here. With that being said, there are some other NFL games happening this week, and this is actually
Thank God.
Yeah. There's actually this is actually the first week that you will see teams not playing. This is the first week of the NFL bye. So with that being said, let's start out probably with the matchup of the week. Two heavy NFC contenders battling again, and the Cowboys are headed out to San Francisco. San Fran's got a 3.5-point lead we've seen this game twice, the past 2 years into the playoffs in the 49ers favor. Will, we'll start with you. How do you think this one goes?
What's the spread in this?
Sorry, I thought it's 3.5. 49ers by 3.5.
Yeah, I like the Niners. I mean, there's no reason that I have to suspect that anything's going to happen other than the 49ers rolling, even though Dallas can do a lot of things. In a game where you have two really good teams, I'll take the team with the better offense. And I think because no matter how good you play defense in the NFL, if you're really great on offense, you can find ways to defeat it. So I'll take the 49ers.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm inclined to go with the 49ers here. The Cowboys are a good team, but I think Trayvon Diggs was a huge loss just up front. I think that was a huge loss. And, it's kind of the same line of thinking with take the team with the better offense, but I think the Niners also just have the difference between the Niners defense and the Cowboys offense is a lot less than the difference between the Niners offense and the Cowboys defense. That Cowboys defense has showed up to some lesser opponents like, the Patriots and, so we can just rip it off real quick. It is the Giants who cannot move the ball. It is the Jets with a fresh Zach Wilson, the Cardinals who they lost to, and the Patriots who, bonus points if you guys can name two receivers.
Juju and
Juju hasn't really been playing. He's got one catch, I think, or something like that. He has no catches, whatever it is.
You just said name a receiver. You didn't say he had to be good.
Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah.
Yep, there you go. And then I think Tyquan Thornton might be catching balls. But yeah, not offenses that are powerhouses, especially the absence of Trayvon Diggs. I don't think the Cowboys have seen an offense like this. I'm not really going to buy into their elite defense yet. So I'm going to go the 49ers pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I think it's kind of obvious. 49ers are just better up and down the field, no matter how you look at it. I understand Dallas's defense is pretty good and they can roll deep like the 49ers do. But the what the biggest defense is the biggest difference is Dak under pressure, Purdy under pressure. Purdy doesn't seem to get rattled. Prescott always seems like he does. It always seems like he can't make that throw that he has to do to win the game. As where all you've seen Brock Purdy do his entire career is win football games. Now, some of that is, Shanahan is just such a great offensive play caller, such a great system, all that. At the end of the day, players got to play, and Prescott does not show up when the brightest lights are on. So I'm taking 49ers definitely by the points there. Let's move on to some other games. Another good one here. Hate to talk about the Texans since we just got our asses handed to them by us, but Texans are headed to Atlanta. Atlanta is a 1.5 point favorite here. Will, I'll let you start off with this one.
Oh my God, take the Texans and the points. This is not recency bias, having just seen Houston. This is more about Atlanta was supposed to have a really diverse and interesting offense. They're one of the most boring offenses in the league, and all pretty much now just consists of hoping that Bijan Robinson breaks a run or a screen pass. So I feel like Houston is across the board just a better team. Like they're young, and they have always the possibility of their quarterback having an inconsistent or bad game because he's a young quarterback. But yeah, give me the Texans and the points. Oh my God, please.
Court?
I'm calling back to teams' receivers a lot right now, but unless you guys are really locked in on fantasy, I don't think either of you could guess the Falcons' leading receiver right now in 5 guesses. You either run out of names or you don't get it.
Bijan Robinson for the win.
No.
Darn
Nope.
it.
Rip off 5. Let's see if you guys get close.
Well, Kyle Pitts, of course.
Nope.
Jonnu Smith.
Fantasy?
Huh?
Did you know that from fantasy or no?
No, I have a friend that's a Titans fan that always tells me how great Jonnu fucking Smith is. So
receiving yards right now. So, that team traded away Calvin Ridley, by the way.
Yeah. Okay.
So
We got to it in 3, just saying.
I thought Drake London was going to come out.
Oh yeah, I mean, I assumed from what you see, the problem is that you hinted. So because of
Yeah.
how you sold it, I wasn't going to say Drake London first. Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of a good representation of their offense. They have guys, but they don't use them. It's hard to screw up with Bijan. They have a good O-line in front of him, so he makes a lot of things happen. But I can't go with the Falcons, especially since I know the Texans they can coach too. I mean, that's the thing. It's the Falcons pull production out on offense, but against good coaching, that's going to be a lot tougher. And I don't think they utilize their stars how they would need to be utilized to beat a team like the Texans. I don't think the Texans are some dynamo, but I think they're better than the Falcons.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with both of you guys. Who would have thought the Texans might win this division at the beginning of the year? I mean, raise your hand if you thought that. So, I just honestly, the true testament to coaching. I mean, they're just coaching at an extremely high level. That they're not even like that fully stocked across the board. But boy, they are fun to watch. Stroud is looking like that. It looks like he's already taking that leap just 4 games into his career. He's getting the ball out. He's reading things quickly. And a lot of that is, Bobby Slowick, that their offensive coordinator, he has done a phenomenal job, involving Tank Dell, fully utilizing Nick Collins, as a guy for, as a go-to guy. Finally got Dalton Schultz involved this past weekend. So they're doing things that really this offense hasn't seen since Deshaun Watson's left. You've seen a quarterback able to consistently move the ball, make the right reads. That's kind of where Davis Mills fell short. So definitely like the Texans here, and the points take that all day long. Then we kind of have an interesting one. Jets are headed to the Broncos. Broncos are favored by 1.5 points. Not gonna lie, I'll start off with this one. I liked what I saw from Zach Wilson this past weekend. I don't know if it's a result of Nathaniel Hackett finally opening up the playbook and saying, look, we can't do anything with the way we're trying to do this. We've got to open things up. Zach Wilson, for all intents and purposes, outplayed Patrick Mahomes this past weekend. Now, that doesn't happen all the time. And there's some crazy Mahomes stat out there where he's never faced a quarterback that he didn't play better than or something like that. I can't remember the exact stat off or whatever, but I'm going to take the Jets. That defense is good. If Zach Wilson can just build off this past game, Broncos are not a good team. They beat a really bad Chicago team this past weekend. So I like the Jets here. Will, what do you think?
I don't have a great degree of confidence, but I'll take the Jets just based on their defense against Denver. Denver has a load of problems, man. That's all I can say. I feel bad. I know some Broncos fans who are real earnest, but yeah, they're just it was all they could do to pull out a win against Chicago last week. That's not a good sign.
All right, Corey.
Yeah. My pick in the CBS pick'em is going to be the Bears, or not the Bears, the Broncos.
That's how you like in the Jets Denver game. I like the Bears.
Yeah, it's gonna be the Jets. However, there's an argument to be made for the Broncos. There's an argument to be made for the Broncos. They had a nice second half comeback. The Bears, that their offense rivals the Steelers, and they made the Bears offense look good. But maybe they ride a little momentum, and maybe Zach Wilson comes back down to earth a little, and I could pretty easily see a world where the Broncos win this. Now, I'll say the Broncos for this. CBS is probably, I think I already put my picks in. I think it's the Jets, but I think that there's a real world where the Broncos win this.
I mean, Russell Wilson is starting to look better this year. So, I mean, that's definitely a possibility. But that brings us to a 5-star matchup.
By the way, Jeremy, I just wanted to say I had 2 big upsets that I like this week, and you didn't touch on either game. I feel bad because
I felt like we had to move on at some point too.
I'd like to spice things up a little bit, but
go for it.
You guys tell me which am I more crazy about? the Las Vegas Raiders over the Green Bay Packers on Monday Night Football. Vegas playing at home. Yes, they've had lots of problems, but I feel like Green Bay is a little bit of a fraud at this point. And the second one is a little bit crazier. The Rams over Philadelphia. Anybody want to ride
that,
with me?
Listen, you get Cooper Kupp is rumored to be coming back, and so you mentioned the Eagles OC. That offense, I'm not going to say it won't click, but it's definitely not the offense that it was last year, if you know what I mean. Like, they're still ironing some things out on there. I could definitely buy that Rams one, especially if they get Kupp back. And I mean, that's a lot of production with Kupp, and assuming Puka gets some targets, that's a lot of production to stop. So that one I could buy. I probably won't pick them, but I'm more inclined to side with that Rams one than the Packers one.
Yeah, you love the Packers every week. I know.
Yeah.
As Murray said, the Raiders Packers, it's a tale of both teams that are two very inconsistent right now. There's times where they look like Tarzan, and then there's games where they show up and look like Jane. Packers this past week against, Detroit on Thursday Night Football. Good grief. I mean, they just got out and just punched right in the face and never recovered, honestly. I don't know. Maybe it's a disdain I have against the Raiders, where it's like I have trouble picking them against anyone. But
yes, I have my teams like that too. Minnesota.
Yeah. But I mean, I'll give, and I hate to do this because I'm a Hoosier fan, I'll give Aiden O'Connell some credit, the former Purdue quarterback. He didn't look completely lost in his rookie start. Looked pretty good. And they only ended up losing that game by 7 points. The way that game started off against the Chargers, you thought it was just gonna, be a runaway freight train, and sure enough, it turned out to be a game in the end. So maybe the Raiders, come out and look good. We'll see. I don't know if Garoppolo's slated to come back this week. He missed his past week for a concussion, right? Yeah. So I mean, you think he could be back? Maybe to their detriment. I hate Garoppolo with passion. But let's get to, I guess, a 5-star game where the Baltimore Ravens are headed to Pittsburgh. Let me double check the line here, but last I checked, Ravens are are favored by 4 in Pittsburgh. Will, how about you give your impressions first here?
I think the only thing that will keep this game close would be if the Ravens pull the plug at halftime like San Francisco did. I think that this is bad in just about every way conceivable, this matchup. Yes, I know it's a rivalry game, and yes, I know it's always close with them, and yes, I know that both teams play differently when they play each other, but it feels like all the stuff that the Ravens are like, sometimes your team is built to stop the team in your division that you're, worried about getting past in the division. I feel like the Steelers right now are the opposite of that. Like, their weaknesses are places that the Ravens can really exploit. And the Steelers' strengths that they do have are not necessarily as effective against the Ravens as this year, maybe, as they usually are. So I think there have only been, I think, 3 times in the Ravens series with the Steelers where they've had a difference in the game of more than 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And I think this will be number 4. I think I'll just give you the score now. I think 27-9 for the Steelers. It's possible. Say again?
3 field goals?
Yes. The thing is, they're, in terms of what was I going to say before that? I just feel like this Kenny Pickett might be aided a little bit by not having his happy feet because he can't move as much and has to get rid of the ball. But what I really fear is that the coaches, knowing that, will really reel it in. They're going to want to try to feed the ball to Najee Harris and try to, make all quick throws for Kenny Pickett. And to me, it's like, if you're going to try to score against a top 5 defense in the NFL, you've got to be more aggressive than that, I think. So unless Baltimore pulls the plug or gets up big and starts playing softer on defense, I I think that they will. Like I said, that formula they have is amazing. That the tight end, throw to Andrews, run the ball with Gus Edwards. Get when you get sucked in to trying to stop those two things, then Lamar takes off on the outside, and then you add this element of Zay Flowers this year against the Steelers team that hasn't been very good at stopping a dynamic wide receiver every week. I mean, whether it's him or I don't think it's going to be Odell Beckham, but whoever it is that ends up having the big game for them, I just feel like it's too easy for them compared to how hard it will be for the Steelers to score points. Could they score? Could they keep it close? Yeah, but it's just not the week for that, in my opinion.
Corey.
Yeah, I've been pretty good on my vibes guesses so far this year. That's usually what I do with the Steelers. I can't remember what I picked for San Francisco. I'm either 3-1 or 4-0, just going with my gut. And my gut this week is saying that we keep it close. I'm still buying into the tradition. Maybe part of it was that we knew the Greg Roman offense, and Todd Monken's offense is going to come out and completely jazz us up and everything. But I'm just going to stick with tradition. I don't think they're going to tear us up. I think I'm going to go. I feel pretty good about the score prediction. I'm going to go 19-17. I'm going to say the Steelers get their defensive touchdown, a short field goal, and then like a big kickoff return to 2-minute drill at halftime touchdown. And the Ravens are going to get 2 touchdowns, a safety, and a field goal. So,
Corey, by the way, see this number right here? 4. You know what that is?
What?
4 red zone drives for the Steelers all year, one of which started at the other team's 39-yard line. Secondly, only one of those was in the first half of games.
I know what I'm saying.
That's all. Just let you go.
I'm predicting one legitimate drive here, and that's a 2-minute drive.
Oh yeah, okay. About that.
Yeah, the defensive touchdown and a short field that leads to a field goal. Yeah. So, I'm still buying into tradition. I think we're going to be able to keep them relatively quiet. I'm not a huge buyer of the Ravens. There's also a stat floating around that, the rookie QB stat was going around how we were 20-5 when facing rookie QBs. That one broke. But it's also whenever we have a huge loss, we always end up coming back and winning. We're like 11-3 after giant losses. But I'm still going with the loss. I think it's not going to be enough. I think they barely ease us out, but I think it's close. I think it's ugly, but not ugly enough to, call for firing of everyone.
I'll sell for one firing. It doesn't need to be everyone. But Corey, I was looking down the calendar. It wasn't time to write Santa a wish list yet. I mean, I'm definitely picking the Ravens here. I just don't feel like Pittsburgh has any. I don't want to say any chance, but it just doesn't feel like we have the ability this year to really stay with teams, especially. Well, hell, ask our coordinator himself, gentlemen. We are not built to come from behind. So, and I think
obvious. Yeah.
So I think that's the big damning one, because I think this is a game where Baltimore could come out really swinging. If anything, Todd Monken can learn something from the Greg Roman playbook of past years. We have not defended the run well, and if anything, I'm using Lamar Jackson running the ball out of 5 wide, out of 3 jumbo sets. I'm doing everything to put the ball in Lamar's hands this week, and just kind of wait us out, because I really think that's all it's going to take. I just don't see anyone on offense really stepping up. George Pickens could be the one guy I think that could make this a competitive game. And it just feels like he's coming off probably one of the worst games of his career. He had some uncharacteristic drops, plays he normally pulls off, but it just didn't feel like he was into the game. And I understand we were playing bad. So, but it's no excuse. You're a second-year player. You want to be, a top 3 wide receiver like he proclaims himself to be. You got to go out there and show it every snap. He does not do that. It's just a fact. So I like the Ravens this week. I think it's going to be a little more bloated than that. I'm going to go 27-13. The defense just can't stop anyone. And I think that's the part, where in past years our secondary was good enough to at least contain, offenses to a degree. We have no ability to do that this year. It doesn't matter whether it's Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, everyone's out of position. No one can tackle like in the back seven. It's absolutely atrocious. It doesn't matter whether Keanu Benton plays the game of his life. If the back seven doesn't support the front four, you can't win ball games. That's where I'm going. So I like Ravens 27-13.
Yeah.
So just
I can see that. I could see 13 instead of 9, but
yeah, two field goals and some garbage time score maybe, or like Corey says, maybe we get that one like 2-minute drill drive where we just kind of catch him off guard or whatever. But again, a guy that we didn't mention in matchups real quick, Roquan Smith is the best inside linebacker in football. Pretty dang close, at least. Fred Warner's up there too, but Roquan is just a straight out warrior, and he's
for downhill guys, man. He's the shit.
Yeah. So, well, thank you again, gentlemen, for joining us on our Week 5 edition of the SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Coleman. You know me as Smith is Smoking on the Message Boards. Also, our colleagues Corey Karbowski, you know him as Corey39, and Will Masek, Bradshaw to Ben. From the crew here we go, Steelers.
Yeah, going somewhere.
Right. All right. You guys have a good one.